Do you feel that something invisible is draining your energy without explanation? Thousands of people wake up every day with an inexplicable weight on their shoulders, a constant feeling that something isn't right, even when everything seems fine in their material life. It's as if a hidden force is slowly consuming your vitality, your spirit, your prosperity. There's no medical diagnosis, no logical explanation, just a persistent fatigue and a feeling of emptiness that seems endless. This is the most subtle manifestation of a spiritual blockage that silently affects thousands of American homes. The symptoms are diverse and often confused with common problems: persistent insomnia without apparent cause, headaches that always appear at the same time, especially between 3 and 4 in the morning, a feeling of weight on your shoulders when entering certain rooms of the house, objects that disappear and reappear without explanation, plants that wither without reason, even with all the care, and that constant impression that something or someone is watching. These are subtle signs that your spirit recognizes, but that your rational mind tries to ignore. If you feel you need immediate protection, comment now. I am protected by divine light. This phrase has power. It's the first step of your spiritual shield. Words carry vibration, and this specific affirmation was revealed by Father Thomas as one of the keys to establishing the first force field against negative influences that try to approach. Salt. Such a simple element, so common in all homes, but carrying a millennial spiritual power that few truly understand. Father Thomas, in his spiritual guidance reserved only for his closest followers, spoke about the purifying and protective power of salt. Not common salt, but salt consecrated through a specific practice that transforms this everyday substance into a powerful instrument of spiritual purification. In the manuscripts preserved by his closest disciples, we find accounts of how the Saint of Springfield used salt in moments of intense spiritual combat. During his known episodes of struggle with negative forces, Father Thomas always kept a small container with consecrated salt near him. It wasn't superstition, but deep spiritual wisdom that dates back to the early days of the Catholic Church and is also present in the oldest spiritual traditions of the world. Salt, in Father Thomas's wisdom, represents the incorruptibility of the soul. In ancient times, it was used to preserve food from deterioration, and symbolically, it preserves the soul from spiritual corruption. It is an element that, when consecrated with sincere faith and pure intention, becomes a conductor of divine grace and a natural repellent of dissonant energies. Jesus himself, in his teaching to the disciples, referred to them as the salt of the earth, highlighting the purifying and preserving power of this element. The ritual I'm going to share now was transmitted by Father Thomas only for specific cases of more intense spiritual interference. It's a ritual of purification and protection that should be performed with reverence and deep inner conviction. Prepare yourself to receive a spiritual tradition that has crossed generations and now reaches you for a divine purpose. To perform this ritual, you will need 7 tablespoons of coarse salt, preferably non-iodized, a transparent glass container, never use plastic as this material does not adequately retain the sacralized energies, a white candle, filtered or mineral, water, never use tap water for spiritual rituals, a small branch of rue or rosemary, plants known for their power to ward off negativity, and a blessed rosary or prayer beads. If you don't have one, use a cross or a religious medal. The ritual should be started preferably at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the hour of mercy as taught by Saint Faustina and reinforced in Father Thomas's spiritual teachings, or at 7 o'clock in the evening when the energies of the day begin to gather. Absolutely avoid performing this ritual at midnight for reasons already revealed in the saint's teachings. This is the time when contradictory forces are most active and can interfere with the sacred process. Begin by preparing your environment. Clean the place where you will perform the ritual, preferably in the kitchen, near the stove, as the fire element purifies and enhances the consecration. Remove electronic objects, especially cell phones and digital watches, as these can interfere with the energy field that will be created. Open the windows for a few minutes before starting, allowing air circulation and renewal of the environment's energies. Light the white candle and say a sincere prayer, asking for divine protection and guidance. You can use your own words, but it's important to mention Father Thomas's name, invoking his intercession. A suggestion for an initial prayer: Glorious Saint Father Thomas, who in life was a living instrument of God's wonders, help me at this moment to purify my home and my life from all influence contrary to the divine will. May, through the power of the Holy Cross, all evil be kept away and all blessing be attracted. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now take the glass container and place it on a clean surface. With your right hand, add the first tablespoon of coarse salt, pronouncing, by the power of number 1, which represents divine unity. I consecrate this salt to ward off all forces contrary to my peace. Make the sign of the cross over the container. Add the second tablespoon of salt, saying, by the power of number 2, which represents the balance between the visible and the invisible, I consecrate this salt to restore harmony in my life. Again, make the sign of the cross over the container. With the third tablespoon, pronounce, by the power of number 3, which represents the Holy Trinity, I consecrate this salt so that divine protection may be established over me and over my house. Make the sign of the cross. On the fourth tablespoon, say, by the power of number 4, which represents the 4 elements of creation, I consecrate this salt so that earth, water, fire, and air may be in harmony around me. Make the sign of the cross. With the 5th tablespoon, pronounce, by the power of number 5, which represents the 5 wounds of Christ, I consecrate this salt so that the redemptive sacrifice may protect me from all evil. Make the sign of the cross. On the 6th tablespoon, say, by the power of number 6, which represents the perfection of divine creation, I consecrate this salt to restore the original order in my life. Make the sign of the cross. And finally, with the 7th tablespoon, proclaim with strength and conviction, by the power of number 7, number of fullness and divine perfection, I consecrate this salt to be an instrument of complete purification, sealing my protection against all evil influence. All evil returns to its origin. Nothing can reach me. I am protected by divine light. Make 7 times the sign of the cross over the container. Quick pause. If you're taking notes, write everything down carefully. Don't skip any detail. Each gesture you make activates a millennial spiritual force. This is not a common ritual, but a profound spiritual practice that has been transmitted through generations, always with the same purpose: to protect God's children from invisible influences that seek to unbalance human life. Resuming the ritual, now take the rue or rosemary branch and dip it in the filtered water. With this moistened branch, sprinkle drops of water over the salt, making the sign of the cross 3 times while saying, pure water, element of life, unite with the power of salt to form an impenetrable shield against all negativity. Through the intercession of St. Father Thomas, may this consecrated salt become an instrument of liberation and protection. Now, take the Blessed Rosary or prayer beads and place it around the container, forming a circle. If you're using a cross or medal, place it on the container. Recite 3 Hail Marys and 1 Our Father, visualizing a golden light descending from heaven and surrounding the salt, enhancing its spiritual properties. With the salt already consecrated, you will perform a protection ritual in your home. Start with the entrance door. Place a small amount of the consecrated salt in your right hand, and with your thumb, make an invisible cross on the door while saying, Through this door, only energies of light, love, and prosperity will enter. All evil returns to its origin. Nothing can reach me. I am protected by divine light. Then go to the windows of the house, repeating the same procedure on each one of them. Remember to make the gesture with reverence and concentration, always visualizing a protective light emanating from the salt and forming an invisible shield on each opening. In the four main corners of the house, especially in the corners of the room where you sleep, place a small amount of the consecrated salt, forming a protective square. In each corner, repeat, "This space is sealed against all negative interference. May God's angels stand guard in this place. All evil returns to its origin. Nothing can reach me. I am protected by divine light." Father Thomas emphasized the special importance of the bedroom because it is during sleep that we are most spiritually vulnerable. Therefore, pay special attention to this environment. Under your bed, preferably near the headboard, place a small amount of the consecrated salt in a glass container. This will function as a catcher of dissonant energies during your sleep. In the kitchen, especially near the stove and refrigerator, also apply the consecrated salt. Father Thomas explained that food easily absorbs the energies of the environment, and protecting these spaces is fundamental for the health, not only spiritual but also physical, of all residents. Don't forget the bathrooms. Place a small amount of consecrated salt near the drain or behind the toilet. According to Father Thomas's teachings, drains and sewers can be doors for heavy energies, and salt functions as a spiritual filter. The rest of the consecrated salt should be kept in a glass container with a lid, preferably in a high place in the house, like the top of a cabinet. This salt will be like a permanent antenna of protection, radiating its beneficial influence throughout the environment. This ritual should be repeated every 7 days during a complete moon cycle, preferably starting on the waxing moon. After completing this 7-week cycle, the protection will be established in a more permanent way, requiring only a monthly renewal, always on the first Friday of each month. The spiritual effects of this ritual begin to manifest subtly in the first 3 days. Many people report an immediate sensation of relief, as if an invisible weight were removed from their shoulders. Sleep tends to become deeper and more restorative, without the startles or nightmares that frequently accompany spiritual interferences. During the first week, it's common to observe changes in mood and general disposition. Vital energy flows more freely, and that constant sensation of fatigue without apparent cause begins to dissipate. Many also report an increase in mental lucidity and capacity for concentration, as if a fog that obscured thought was gradually lifted. As the protection cycle advances, deeper changes begin to manifest. Relationships that were worn out without apparent reason begin to flow better. Opportunities that seemed blocked begin to appear as if invisible doors were being opened. Prosperity, which seemed stagnant, begins to flow again like a river that had its waters unobstructed. On the physical plane, it's frequent that chronic pains of unknown origin begin to diminish. That persistent headache, that discomfort in the back that didn't respond to conventional treatments, that stubborn insomnia, all these symptoms frequently have a spiritual root that, when properly treated, allows the physical body to return to its natural state of balance and health. On the dream plane, many people report significant experiences after starting this protection cycle. Revealing dreams, encounters with beings of light, sensation of receiving instructions or healings during sleep. All these are manifestations of the spiritual work that continues while the body rests. Now, in an energetically more protected environment, Mrs. Sarah, a 67-year-old lady who had suffered for more than a decade with an inexplicable feeling of oppression in her house, shared her testimony after performing this ritual. "It was as if I was carrying an invisible burden every day. I consulted doctors, took medicines, but nothing resolved that constant anguish. After performing the salt ritual for the full 49 days, it was as if a heavy curtain had been removed from my life. My house became a home again, a place of peace. Even my children noticed the difference when they came to visit me, saying that the environment was lighter, more welcoming. I know it was the power of faith and the intercession of Father Thomas that worked this transformation. John, a young 32-year-old entrepreneur who faced an inexplicable series of obstacles in his business, also experienced a remarkable transformation. No matter how hard I tried, it seemed like I was rowing against the tide. Well-planned projects failed at the last moment. Potential clients gave up without explanation. Promising partnerships suddenly fell apart. After I performed the salt ritual following all the guidelines, it was as if an invisible blockage had been removed. In less than 2 months, I closed contracts that had been stuck for more than a year. The change was so evident that even my partners, who were initially skeptical about spiritual matters, started to pay attention. Father Thomas always emphasized that spiritual protection is not a matter of superstition, but of ancestral wisdom. The invisible affects the visible, the spiritual influences the material. This ritual does not replace sincere faith, regular prayer, and the practice of sacraments for Catholics. It is a complement, a tool that in the hands of those who have true faith becomes a powerful instrument of transformation. It's important to emphasize that during the period of the ritual, you may experience some signs that spiritual cleansing is occurring. Don't be alarmed if in the first days, symptoms such as mild headache, excessive sleepiness, or even intense dreams arise. Just as when we clean a very dirty house, the dust rises before being completely removed. Also in spiritual cleansing, there may be an initial movement of energies that were stagnant. Some people also report perceiving inexplicable smells during the first days after the beginning of the ritual. A soft aroma of roses, frequently associated with the presence of beings of light, or, in contrast, unpleasant odors without apparent source, indicating the removal of dense energies. These phenomena are transitory and indicate that the purification process is underway. Other positive signs include the sudden inspiration to remove broken or unused objects from the house. Father Thomas taught that damaged objects, especially mirrors, porcelains, or cracked crystals, can function as retainers of disharmonic energies. If during the process of the ritual you feel an inexplicable impulse to reorganize your house or discard certain objects, even if you have some attachment to them, consider this as part of the process of energy renewal. Father Thomas also recommended special attention to dreams during this period of cleansing and spiritual protection. According to his teachings, during sleep, our soul becomes more receptive to important spiritual messages. Keep a small notebook near the bed and note your dreams right upon waking. Recurrent patterns or symbols may contain specific guidance for your situation. A fundamental aspect that cannot be ignored is forgiveness. During the process of spiritual purification, memories of old hurts may surface, bringing emotions that seemed forgotten. This is not coincidence, but part of the liberation process. Father Thomas taught that forgiveness is one of the most powerful forms of spiritual cleansing. If during this period you remember painful situations or people who hurt you, make a conscious exercise of forgiveness. A complementary practice that enhances the effects of the salt ritual is what Father Thomas called a fast from negative words. During the 49 days of the complete protection cycle, consciously avoid low-vibration words, constant complaints, destructive criticism, gossip, curses, swearing. Words have power, and when we are in the process of spiritual purification, our capacity for manifestation through word intensifies. It is also recommended, as far as possible, to reduce exposure to energetically heavy environments during this period. Places with a large concentration of people in a state of suffering or conflict, such as hospitals, unless your work requires, in unnecessary funeral services, environments with excessive consumption of alcohol or other substances that diminish the natural protection field of the human being. If it is inevitable to frequent such places, reinforce your protection before and do a simple energetic cleansing when returning home, taking a bath with water and coarse salt. As the 49-day cycle advances, many people report an increase in synchronicity in their lives. Significant casual encounters, messages that seem to respond exactly to an inner doubt, books that fall into hands bringing exactly the teaching needed at that moment. These are manifestations of what Father Thomas called divine language, which becomes more perceptible when our energy field is cleaner and more protected. In the health aspect, it's common that after a few weeks of the ritual, the immune system seems strengthened. People who were constantly affected by small illnesses without apparent cause notice a significant improvement. Father Thomas explained that many apparently physical diseases have their root in energetic and spiritual imbalances, and when these are harmonized, the physical body responds positively. On the financial plane, an interesting observation made by many who perform this ritual is that there is not necessarily an immediate increase in the quantity of material resources, but rather a significant improvement in the management and utilization of what one already has. It's as if a superior intelligence began to guide financial decisions, leading to a sensation of greater abundance even without drastic changes in income. A phenomenon frequently reported after the third week of the ritual is what Father Thomas called the awakening of sacred intuition. People who before made decisions based only on rational logic begin to perceive a more subtle and, curiously, more precise internal guidance. It's as if a channel of communication with inner wisdom was gradually unblocked. In relationships, many perceive a renewed ability to establish healthy boundaries. Relationships that drained energy without offering mutual growth naturally distance themselves, while nutritive and positive connections are strengthened or arise in apparently coincidental ways. Father Thomas explained that when our energy field is cleaner and more protected, we naturally attract circumstances and people who vibrate at a similar frequency. For those who have children, an additional benefit frequently observed is the improvement in behavior and well-being of the children. Being naturally more sensitive to subtle energies, children are often the first to demonstrate the positive effects of the energetic cleansing of the home. Problems such as recurrent nightmares, inexplicable fears, or excessive agitation tend to decrease significantly. Emma, mother of a 7-year-old boy, shared her experience. My son always had difficulty sleeping, woke up several times during the night screaming about shadows in the room. I consulted psychologists, neurologists, and they all said it was just common nightmares at his age. After I did the salt ritual in our house, in the first week, I already noticed a difference. He began to sleep peacefully, without startles. After a month, even his school performance improved, as if he could finally rest properly and have energy for his daily activities. Robert, a 45-year-old university professor who always considered himself skeptical about spiritual matters, also had a transformative experience. I started the ritual more out of desperation than conviction. I was going through such a difficult period that I was willing to try anything. In the first days, I confess that I did everything mechanically, without much faith. But around the 10th day, I began to notice subtle changes. The constant anguish that had accompanied me for months began to diminish. I started to sleep better, to think more clearly. It was as if a mental fog began to dissipate. At the end of the complete cycle, I was transformed. I have no scientific explanations for what happened, but the results are undeniable. It's important To understand that this ritual, like all true teachings of Father Thomas, aims not only at individual well-being, but also at strengthening the capacity to serve others. Many people report that after completing the protection cycle, they feel naturally impelled to help those around them, as if a layer of selfishness had been removed along with the negative energies. Father Thomas always emphasized that true spiritual growth is reflected in concrete fruits of love for one's neighbor. If after performing the ritual, you feel a greater impulse for acts of charity, for listening with more attention to others' problems, for being more patient with human flaws, this is one of the most significant signs that purification is occurring at a deep level. Another important aspect that deserves attention is what happens with personal objects during this period of cleansing. It is not uncommon for objects that were lost long ago to suddenly appear, often in obvious places where one had already looked before. This is not coincidence, but a manifestation of the energetic reordering that is occurring in the environment. Similarly, objects that subtly exercise a negative influence in your life may break or become damaged without apparent cause during this period. Father Thomas taught that certain objects can carry dense energetic memories, and when we initiate a purification process, these objects naturally tend to detach from us. If this happens, accept it as part of the process and discard the broken object appropriately, always before sunset. As you advance in the protection cycle, your sensitivity to environmental energies tends to increase. You may begin to perceive more clearly environments or people that drain your energy, as well as those that positively nourish it. This renewed discernment is a valuable tool for maintaining balance after the end of the complete ritual cycle. People who work in particularly challenging environments energetically, such as hospitals, prisons, courtrooms, or even offices with intense interpersonal conflicts, frequently report a renewed ability to maintain their energetic integrity after completing the ritual. It's as if an invisible shield was strengthened, allowing compassion without unnecessary absorption of others' energies. An interesting phenomenon observed by many is the change in the relationship with time. After a few weeks from the beginning of the ritual, many people report a sensation that time expands, allowing them to perform more activities without the constant pressure of haste. Father Thomas explained that when we are under the influence of dense energies, our perception of time contracts, generating anxiety and the sensation of never having enough time. In the field of creativity, the unblocking is frequently notable. Artists who were in periods of creative scarcity, writers facing the dreaded writer's block, musicians without inspiration, all report a renewed flow of ideas after initiating the process of energetic cleansing. It's as if channels of inspiration previously obstructed were gradually released. Mary, a 39-year-old writer, shared, "I'd been trying to finish my book for almost 2 years, but every time I sat down to write, it was like hitting an invisible wall. My ideas seemed confused, disconnected. After the 3rd week of the salt ritual, I sat in front of the computer without great expectations, and to my surprise, the words began to flow like never before. In 2 months, I not only finished the book that was stuck, but already started another with a mental clarity that I hadn't experienced in years." For those who practice some form of meditation or contemplative prayer, the benefits of the ritual are particularly evident. The ability to silence the mind, to reach deeper states of consciousness, and to maintain focus during longer periods tends to increase significantly. Some report more intense mystical experiences, which Father Thomas described as momentary windows to higher realities. As the cycle approaches the end, many people report recurrent dreams with crystalline water, rivers, lakes, waterfalls, or even the sea. In the spiritual symbolism taught by Father Thomas, these dreams indicate that the purification process is reaching deeper levels of being. washing away old hurts and traumas that were stored in cellular and energetic memory. Around the 6th week of the ritual, it is common to occur what Father Thomas called the final purification crisis. It may manifest as a day of intense fatigue, a sadness apparently without cause, or even a brief return of old symptoms. Don't be alarmed. This is the manifestation of the removal of the deepest and most resistant layers of disharmonic energies. This period rarely lasts more than 24 hours and is followed by a renewed sensation of lightness and clarity. After completing the full 49-day cycle, monthly maintenance is fundamental to preserve the benefits achieved. This maintenance is simpler, involving only the renewal of the consecrated salt at the main points of the house, entrance, bedroom and kitchen, always on the first Friday of each month. To facilitate, you can consecrate a larger quantity of salt at the end of the initial cycle and store it properly for these monthly maintenances. An important observation made by Father Thomas is that after the complete cycle, our responsibility for what we allow to enter our energy field increases. It's as if we received a clean field and now had the responsibility to maintain it. This involves awareness about the environments we frequent, the people with whom we interact intimately, the media content we consume, and mainly, the quality of our thoughts and words. Luke, a 50-year-old businessman, reported his experience after completing the cycle. I finished the ritual thinking it would be the end of the process, but in reality, it was just the beginning. I realized that I had received not only protection, but greater awareness. I began to notice how certain habits that before seemed harmless to me, like watching sensationalist news before sleeping or maintaining superficial relationships with people of heavy energy, profoundly affected my well-being. The ritual gave me not only protection, but spiritual education. By performing this ritual, you are not only following a tradition, but actively participating in a process of profound spiritual transformation, according to the teachings left by Father Thomas. It is a commitment to yourself, to your integral well-being, and to your spiritual evolution. The effects of this practice transcend the visible, creating waves of positive influence that extend beyond the limits of your house or your immediate understanding. You are essentially becoming a point of light, an epicenter of harmonic energies, in a world often dominated by disharmonic vibrations. Perform this ritual today. Don't wait. The energy around you is already moving. The protection you seek is in your hands now. Each moment of postponement is one more moment under influences that may be compromising not only your well-being, but your achievements, your relationships, your prosperity, and your inner peace. The moment of transformation is now. Father Thomas used to say, spiritual opportunity does not wait for the convenient moment. It is the convenient moment itself knocking at your door. Your encounter with these guidelines is not casual, but a response to your silent prayers for liberation and protection. With sincere faith, pure intention, and following the guidelines with precision, you are about to experience a profound spiritual renewal, an energetic rebirth that will manifest in all aspects of your existence. You are 49 days away from a transformed life.